So apparently you guys seem to really like the ranking the hoods video, and so I'm going to do what every big corporation does when something is successful and run the idea into the ground until it is no longer profitable. But what shall we rank today? The ninja suits? No, that makes too much sense. The Ninjago sets themselves? Maybe not. The seasons? Nah, that's been done to death. Actually, why am I doing this? You've read the title, you already know what we're going to rank. The ninja armor pieces. Guess why not just go down one piece from the hood? Just ignore the headpiece. Here are all of the wonderful armor pieces that we'll be ranking. Just like the hood piece ranking, we'll just be ranking the piece itself and not every variation of it. I was going to include the seabound scuba gear piece as it could be seen as armor with its spot for a sword, but I think I trashed it enough in the hood ranking video, which you should totally watch if you haven't already. And while you're at it, why not go ahead and subscribe to the channel too? That'd be like totally awesome and stuff. With the obligatory self-promotion out of the way, let's begin overanalyzing small pieces of chokeable plastic. The first armor piece used for the ninja is the Kendo armor piece, that was released way before Ninjago was conceived in the LEGO bedroom, with it being introduced in 1998 and used for the original LEGO ninja theme. As the name suggests, this armor piece was only ever used for the ninja in their Kendo training gear, being compatible with a good few ninja hood pieces, minus the Pilots, Legacy, Forbidden Spinjitzu, Primal Power, Master of the Mountain, the godforsaken Seabound hood, and the Dragon Master hood. Since this piece was made in 1998, it's a pretty simple armor piece, being slotted on top of a minifigure's torso and covering both the front and the back, providing some shoulder protection as well. The chest plate features a pretty nice window design, allowing you to see some of the minifigure's torso printing, alongside a notch at the top and bottom of the armor, helping it have a more interesting shape than just a plain grey square. The same cannot be said about the back however, as it has basically no detail. At least it's not completely flat, as it has some shaping and a slight raised feel to it. On the two shoulder pads you actually have a pretty good square design, giving this armor piece some nice added texture. I'll go ahead and slot the Kendo armor piece into B tier. It's not the best looking armor, not really what I think of when I imagine ninja armor, but it will probably do its job of stopping you from being stabbed in the chest. Next up we have this armor piece introduced in 2012, first being used for the ZX armor before being used for stone armor, deep stone, and hands of time. This armor piece is usable with almost all of the ninja hood pieces, minus all the ones that feature a knot at the back, such as the Pilots and Legacy. The 2012 armor piece is basically the standard for a ninja armor, having two shoulder pads and featuring a circular mold at the back with slots for two swords. Just don't put them in like this. That is a war crime punishable by death, or being forced to watch all of Nexonites. Pick your poison. The two shoulder pads have a nice sharp look to them, being made up out of three sharp points, with small indents at the bottom which allows for the armor to actually be worn by figures. The circle design on the back looks pretty good. I like that it isn't exactly symmetrical on each side, giving it a somewhat realistic or strapped on look. Having space for two swords was certainly a step up from the Pilot's hood only one sword limit. The 2012 armor piece will be placed into A tier, truly a classic and standard look for armor. After that, we wouldn't get a new armor piece until 2016, being introduced for my beloved Skybound wave, being reused for Day of the Departed and Sons of Garmadon suits. Just like the previous armor piece, this one is compatible with all hood pieces that don't feature a large knot at the back. A pretty obvious difference about this piece is that it only has one shoulder pad, protecting the right arm. Rest in peace if we ever attack from the left, I guess. Honestly, I prefer the one shoulder look that later became a common trend with the armor pieces. It just looks and feels more sleek and ninja-like, so there not being much weight or bulky armor getting in the way. Speaking of getting in the way however, a huge negative for this piece is the left arm cannot be moved back at all, being stopped by the new scabbard design. Damn, left-handed people just can't catch a break. The design for holding the swords in the back is completely different from the circle design for the previous armor, now looking like two strap-on rectangles with holes in them. The two swords now facing the same way. Just don't put them in like this. That is also a war crime. Not punishable by watching all of Nexonites, but still a war crime. I think I like this type of sword holding better than the last, as it just looks better with both swords pointing the same way. On the only shoulder pad for this armor we have a nice grill-like detail which certainly looks better than just a plain shoulder pad. I think this armor piece will fit well in the A tier. Now we go from an armor piece that only has a right shoulder pad to an armor piece that only has a left shoulder pad. This piece was introduced in 2019 and would be used for Season 11, The Island, Core, and Crystallized, and thanks to the way the back part is molded, it's usable with every Ninjago hood piece. Except for the Pilot's hood, get that old crap out of here. The 2019 armor piece looks very similar to the last one you just looked at, but as I pointed out only features a left shoulder pad. Unlike the 2016 armor piece, this shoulder pad doesn't feature any kind of grill detail, but instead has a really cool engraving of a shuriken, making the shoulder pad have a flat but also detailed look. Around the back of this piece we have a bit of a downgrade, as this piece only has a slot for one sword instead of two. This was really the only way they could have had the new for 2019 hood piece work with this armor piece, so I'm not too bothered about it only having one sword. And this scabbard design looks a lot better than the previous hole design the last one had, making this one feel a lot more realistic and complete. And with only one sword it kinda gives off a sleek and elegant design, as two swords would certainly be harder to sneak around with. This one sword limit comes with another advantage, as where the previous armor piece didn't allow for a total movement of both arms, this one does, or at least as much as a shoulder pad will allow. At first, I wasn't really a fan of this armor piece when it was first shown off, but it's really grown on me, so with that I'll be placing the 2019 armor piece into the S tier. Leaving 2019 and entering the new decade of 2020, we received yet another new armor piece, being used exclusively for the Prime Empire season. Let me start off by saying that I am very conflicted on this armor piece. On one hand I like it, and on the other I don't like it. I just hope those two hands don't have a thumb war over this. Unfortunately, we return to the curse of the armor pieces not working with any hood pieces that feature a large knot on the back with this one. Okay, let's start with the front of the armor piece, which is already not looking good with this awkward gap between the arms and shoulder pads. I get that every piece has a gap here so that the arms can actually move, but here it looks and feels a lot larger than it should be. Also, it allowing the arms to move is total bullshit because they cannot move at all. Of course you can move them straight up, but if you want to move them back then you're out of luck, Buster. The shoulder pads on this armor don't look too bad. I like the angular and layered design. The two circles on each shoulder pad are kinda hit or miss for me. It looks cool, but it also doesn't. I think I would have preferred it to just be flat. Turning this piece around, we have the root of most of this armor's problem being the back. My god, what were they thinking? We return to being able to hold two swords, which is cool and all, but thanks to the scabbard design being so goddamn chunky, the arms are unable to move back. Also at the back we have probably the worst part of this entire piece, the hole for a goddamn gamer tag. The slot for a gamer tag adds so much bulk to this armor. I guess it is kind of cool to have a literal gamer tag be part of a Ninjago armor piece, but I honestly did not really care for this feature and just tossed all of the gamer tags into a box. As much as I don't like this part of the armor, I do like the sharp point it has. There's also this weird hole in the armor which is most likely because of the scabbard, but it just looks so odd, making the gamer tag feel so tacked on. I wish I could have at least filled this weird hole in. Just like the hood piece this armor was made for, it isn't really that useful outside of its video game context, unlike most of the armor pieces on this list that can mostly work outside of a Ninjago context. Unfortunately, gamers will continue to be oppressed as this piece will be thrown into the lowest C tier. Leaving our mother's basement and falling into the Shintaro dungeon, we have the Season 13 armor piece that, yep, you guessed it, was only ever used with the Season 13 wave, with it looking like it was ripped right off Cloud's Strife from Final Fantasy. Just like the previous armor piece, this one is also incompatible with any hood featuring a large knot at the back. God, LEGO has a real hatred for knots. This armor piece kinda features two shoulder pads, with the one on the right being a lot smaller than the one on the left, which is really well made. They must have dug into the Nexonite's grave for inspiration. I really like the way they designed the main shoulder pad, with having a layered design at the bottom and a somewhat round and angular look for the large top part. It's a nice detail of a bolt looking like it's holding it in place. Spinning this piece around, we can see that this is one of the few armor pieces to not include a scabbard for a sword, instead featuring a basic stud that allows for a clip piece to be added on and allow for the ninja to have both a sword and shield on their back, which is such a cool addition that adds some customization that all the other armor pieces just don't allow for. And yes, before you ask, you can attach a gun. I'll be placing this piece into the A tier. We're now here at our final armor piece, being the one used for the ninja's golden dragon forms in 2022. This armor piece has such an elegant design, with nice pointed shoulder pads that come all the way down to the figure's torso. The main feature of this armor is the two Technic pinholes at the back, of course being used for the dragon form wings, which just looks awesome. I really love the way the front of this armor is shaped. The back part, however, is definitely a little odd looking without the wings, and really knocks this armor down a few spots, as it's not really that useful without the wings. If only there was a version without the Technic holes at the back. Our final piece will be joining the B tier. And so there we have it. All of the ninja's armor pieces have now been ranked. Just like the hood tier list, I have left a link in the description below so that you too can rank the armor pieces, if you wanted to for some reason. Now if you excuse me, I'm going to book a therapy session, as I am deeply traumatized for having to look at the Prime Empire armor for more than 5 seconds. Just looking at it makes me want to file a restraining order.